This conference will now be recorded.
All right, can everyone see my slide?
Not yet, like we just have a blank screen right now, so we're just waiting for it.
Not ready.
Already uploaded. Can you see my screen?
No.
No.
How about this?
Yeah, now it's visible.
Yes.
Okay,
Now
that's good.
clear. Yes.
All right, so can everyone see now?
Yeah,
Yes,
now it's visible.
Okay, I see. Hello, everyone. Good evening, actually, here in Seoul, South Korea, at 7:15 p.m. Very nice meeting you all. Today, I'm going to talk about the transport and toxicity mechanism of atmospheric plastic particle. Before my talk, let me introduce myself and my colleague. I'm a professor of research in post-plastic, a specialized program of graduate school at the University of Seoul. And my colleague, Professor Hyunho Kim, and myself, we are leading graduate school, particularly focused on the post-plastic. So, most study focus on the toxicity and also the transport and degradation of plastic waste and also bioplastic as well in our graduate program. So today's talk is more focused on how the plastic particles are transported and their potential toxicity and mechanism of atmospheric plastic particles. All right, so I'm going to give you some background information, and then particularly the atmospheric deposition, the toxicity mechanism of plastic particle, and will further provide you a brief summary and future research direction as well. First, background information. So when we said the plastic, plastic defined, polymer including the polyethylene, polypropylene, polystyrene, PVC, and so on, as well as additives. So plastics composed of polymer and additives. Some of the additives, such as stabilizer, are commonly used in order to prevent the aggregation. So the plastic also classify into primary. Primary means the manufactured products such as cosmetic and shampoo, toothpaste, and so on. The older commercial consumer product contain either micro or nanoplastic particles. When we say the secondary plastic particle means it's a breakdown. So the fragment of the primary particles. So primary plastic particles undergo degradation through the photo-oxidation or thermal oxidation, the physical chemical degradation. So we can see the secondary plastic particles mostly in the form of fibers, fragments, and so on. We can also classify mega, macro, meso, or nano microplastic. It depends on the particle size. So commonly used terminology is microplastic and nanoplastic. So if the particle size is less than 5 millimeter, we can call such a plastic particle as microplastic. Less than 0.1 micrometer, those called as nanoplastic. there are several shapes, such as fiber, foam, fragment, and bead and nodules. And the most commonly found shape of plastic particle are either fiber or fragment. So as you know, we are all under the COVID-19 situation, pandemic situation. As such, many plastic waste are discharged into the environment. Nonetheless, the plastic production has been increased. If you look at the table, the graph, even single-use plastic or either single-use plastic and other types of plastic, the total manufacture of such a plastic product has significantly increased over time. And if we look at the types of plastic, HDPE is the most significant production over time, especially either less than 500 tons or more than 2,000 tons. So HDPE is one of the commonly produced type of plastic product. So as I mentioned earlier, the plastic particles are emitted into the environment, into the atmosphere, seawater, or freshwater, ocean, soil, or sediment. So there are many different transport mechanisms, which we are going to see in more detail later on. Nonetheless, despite the significant amount of plastic waste generated annually and emitted into the environment, there is a lack of study about the degree, the extent of atmospheric deposition, and also the toxicity mechanism of plastic particles. So we are going to see how plastics particles are emitted into the environment, as well as the potential toxicity mechanism. So as I mentioned earlier, you can see that plastic waste are everywhere, on street, beach, ocean, especially through the tremendous COVID-19 waste, such as your face mask, glove, and food packaging, and so on. Obviously, such plastic waste pose the negative, health risk to the environment, on health, public health, as well as the negative impact on the environment. And particles are also as a vector to carry out toxic contaminant, because the contaminant, some of the contaminants are hydrophobic. And they have a strong affinity onto the surface of plastic. So the plastic waste also carry such a toxic contaminant into the environment. So these figures show the sources and possible route of microplastic, micro or nanoplastic contamination. So as I mentioned earlier, the primary plastic and also the secondary plastic. So the industry manufacture significant amount of plastic product, and we all consume such plastic items, clothes, and shampoo, toothpaste, and textile, even textile industry. They brought the clothes has different types of fiber and so on. And such a plastic product generated waste, and such waste are released and emitted into the environment, contaminating seawater and the sediment, soil, and actually the microplastic and nanoplastic detected in water also released into the atmosphere through the wave, wind, and the vertical horizontal movement around the ocean. So ultimately, such plastic particles are released into the environment, but also cause potential impact to the environment as well as to the public health. So before we look at the potential toxicity of plastic particle, let's look at the physical chemical property of microplastic. So the most two common type of plastic detected in environment is either microplastic, so 0.1 micrometer to 5 millimeter, and nanoplastics 0.001 to 0.1 micrometer. And there are several different types of plastic particles. So the A show the pellet type, B is fiber type, C is fragment. So whether we classify into pellet, fiber, or fragments depends on the particle size. So the objective of this research is to investigate the transport pathway, the toxicity mechanism of atmospheric plastic particle, and also to explore human health risk from exposure to plastic debris. So if we look at the atmospheric microplastic in the environment, so there are several physical chemical property of plastic particles. But if we look at the atmospheric microplastic, we can find more smaller particle size compared to other types or other size of particle detected into the aquatic environment. And also very interestingly, as more microplastic accumulated with more decreasing size. So with a smaller size has a significant accumulation of microplastic. In the atmosphere, the fiber and fragment are also the dominant shape. So the mechanism, the transport mechanism, as you can see in this figure, the ejection of micro and nano-sized particles from the sea and onto the bubbles of trapped air to rise to the surface by wave. So nano-sized particles are expelled and suspended in the air and available for the wind transport. Through the bursting of the bubble surface, and there is also secondary ejection. Secondary ejection is to eject the larger micro-sized particle by water collision. And this figure shows the urban atmospheric microplastic deposition. And you can see most of the plastic particle detected in the atmosphere is fibrous. So you can see the deposition rate are most significant from the fibrous plastic particle compared to non-fibrous particles. The most common distribution among the non-fibrous microplastic, the morphology is from fragment, followed by film, granule, and foam. And if we look at the distribution of fiber material, the most significant distribution of fiber material is a cellulose type, followed by petrochemical and the regenerated cellulose. The other small fraction is was not identifiable. And this graph shows the frequency in terms of the over diameter length, and also the either from the sample, the fibrous particle diameter and length, as well as non-fibrous microplastic diameter. So you can see The size distribution of fibrous particle diameter mostly dominant around 20 micrometer. In terms of the length, 500 micrometer from the fibrous particles. In terms of non-fibrous microplastic, the maximum dimension distribution, the most frequently found has a length around 100 micrometer. And this is the composition of microplastic in total atmospheric diffraction. So among the identified petrochemical-based fibrous microplastic, PAN, which is polyacrylonitrile, was around 66.7%, and most dominant form of the distribution among the based on the fibrous microplastic, followed by PS, PA, and other types. However, if we look at non-fibrous microplastic, basically we can see most different types of plastic types are distributed. But the most significant was 80.88%, which is polystyrene. So polystyrene is found among the non-fibrous microplastic. In terms of toxicity mechanism of plastic particles, there are several sources, fate and degradation of micro and nano plastics. So how the transformation or biodegradation occur in terms of the plastic particles distribution from the microplastic to nanoplastic, either it can undergo biodegradation through the extracellular enzyme or non-biodegradation, which means either particles undergo thermal degradation, physical degradation, or photo degradation through the UV light, the sunlight, under the sunlight, or thermal oxidative degradation, or hydrolysis in the presence of water. So when we, in terms of the pathway, the toxicity pathway, so how such plastic particles are eventually transported through the food and through the human body. If we look at the figure, the pathway, the primary sources, which means the industrial manufacturing products. So those once such plastic particle emitted into the environment, it can undergo degradation under various environmental conditions. And such as well as the secondary sources, which means the breakdown of macro plastic from the primary particles. Those are such plastic particles release toxic chemicals. So as I mentioned earlier, hydrophobic contaminant has a significant affinity to adsorb onto the surface of plastics. So actually, such plastic particle release toxic chemical, toxic additive, and contaminating the food. So since we consume various types of food, milk, egg, fish, vegetable, fruit, and so on. So our human body are also exposed to such plastic, tiny micro or nanoplastic particles. So as I mentioned before, the particles through the degradation processes are exposed to the environment as well as to human body. So the human ingestion of microplastic depends on the types of food. So, several studies show fish is one of the food that we significantly consume plastic particles. Unfortunately, fish are also exposed to the plastic particle from various sources in water, right? And such a food include fish, sugar, even honey, sea salt, beer, and milk. If we look at the concentration of microplastic in PET and glass bottle, depends on multi-use or single-use for the PET type. And the range was significant if we from the glass, ranging from 2.6 to even 8.7 microgram per liter. In terms of the plastic shape detected in fresh water, the most significant was fragment, followed by fiber, film, and foam. Now, the commonly detected shape also depends on the environment media, either fresh water, seawater, or sediment or soil. So the pathway, as I showed before, the micro or nanoplastic contaminated food, and we consume such a contaminated food through ingestion. And once we consume such contaminated food, micro or nanoplastic also contact with the digestive fluid, contact to the intestinal cell, and it uptake and transfer into the intestine, liver, and actually, and then ultimately excretion via feces. So human exposure to micro or nanoplastic occurs through the food ingestion or through the inhalation from the indoor or outdoor air. And actually, inhalation is most important sources of airborne microplastic from there are various sources. The most common sources of the inhalation of tiny plastic particles are synthetic textile, the erosion of synthetic rubber types, city dust. The dominant shape is fiber. As I mentioned, the dominant shape depends on the environment media. In freshwater, we saw that fragment is most dominant shape, but in the atmosphere, fiber was the most significant. And also thermal contact. Microplastic bead also found in facial cleansing and facial scrub, toothpaste, soap, shampoo, and sunscreen, and so on, etc. So we also has thermal contact through using such a consumer product. The potential effect of micro or nano contamination on intestinal health and the immune response. Through the ingestion, inhalation, thermal contact, the cell, immune cell disorder or microbial diversity, and we can also see immunotoxicity as well. So the chronic effect are not well studied and not well understood because of lack of study in this area. So, but we assume there is a significant concern about the chronic exposure to the micro or nanoplastic. And several studies also found that significant amount of nanoparticles from the drinking water. So we also, most people don't know whether we consume nanoplastic in drinking water, but we found a significant amount of nanoplastic from even tap water, drinking water, and so on. So the ingestion of microplastic disturb and the essential intestinal functions, and also the multifunctional nature of intestinal system. So we assume that such disruption may promote immune, inflammatory, and metabolic disorder. And this show the figure, the first figure show the major pathway of human exposure to nanoparticles through lung, gastrointestinal tract, and or the dermal contacts, the skin. And this is one of the study that has with the polystyrene nanoparticles. So the TM image showing the spherical shape polystyrene nanoparticles. The right-hand side the figure that it is a human lung epithelial cancer cell, and the yellow one show the polystyrene particles. So attached onto the cell, the cancer cell, and the nuclei, which is color in blue. So this is taken after exposure for 24 hours of the polystyrene type of plastic particles. So in summary, the microplastic, the accumulation and the abundance increase when the particles size is smaller. So the most dominant shape detected into the atmosphere are fiber and fragment, but fiber is the most dominant form. And micro nanoplastic detected in both aquatic and terrestrial environment, and such the micro or nanoplastic are enter the food chain and water supply, and eventually we consume such polluted food, contaminated food. So we are also exposed to micro nanoplastic. The potential effect included the inflammatory reaction, oxidative stress, metabolic disorder, and following the exposure, uptake is possible via ingestion or inhalation from indoor and outdoor air. And the toxicity assessment mainly focus on gastrointestinal or pulmonary toxicity. Because of the variety in particle size, as I mentioned earlier, the plastic particle are classified many different types of particle, depends on the particle size and shape and chemical composition. So we assume the potentially hazardous effect may depends on the type, the size of micro nanoplastic exposed to the human health. But such a potential effect have not been studied well especially over long-term exposure. So the future research should focus on the potential hazard and risk of chronic exposure to the diverse micro nanoplastic at environmentally relevant concentration. So the future research direction included study addressing the effect of nanoparticles. Most study focus on microplastic, but not nanoplastic. So nanoplastic on aquatic organism need further investigation. And also the exposure risk for human via the food chain. And as I mentioned earlier, the over long-term phase
des pods de dissolution est constitué de
ingested nanoparticle in aquatic organism and human is limited. So the focus should be at the environmentally relevant concentration in the environment media. The modeling chronic exposure for more realistic hazard and risk assessment also needed for the future research. And also As I mentioned, the hydrophobic and other contaminant, toxic contaminant has a strong affinity to adsorb onto plastic surface. However, the research on the reaching of toxic chemical from plastic is very limited. So this is one of the research direction to do for the future. And this work was supported by Korean Ministry of Environment and Korean Environment Industry and Technology Institute. Thank you, everyone. Any questions?
I have a recommendation.
Yes. Sure.
I can. So in Tunisia, there is the problem of the plastic, and the phthalate is particularly in the phthalate plastic, which have attacked the turtle marine, and there is for the evaluation of the turtle in the coastal area of Tunisia, there is many disappearance of the majority of turtle. So plastic disease, plastic is veritable, is important pollutant. It attacks not also fish, but actually there is a project with for the biomonitoring of turtle, and that and we have now in Indonesia a center which take this turtle for suffer from disease, from many perturbation, endocrine problem, and the serious problem. So I thank you for your contribution, which is
thank you.
Yes, which is a research topic and the model from. But I know with your presentation many kind of plastic, not for alimentation, but inhalation, with ameliorate the situation and complicate the situation. But I looked at microplastic, which was able to cause the dermic cancer in the epithelium from our body, which is a serious problem. So it's very interesting and it's very original contribution. I thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sung Hee Jo, for your presentation. So do we have any other questions or comments?
Yes, actually, I do have a question.
Yes, Dr. Elena, please do go ahead.
Thank you. I noticed here in the grocery store that there are more and more foods wrapped in plastic here in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Just for efficiency. Do you have already experience with government organizations who are how do you say, controlling this plastic use?
Yes, that's a good question. Yeah, so in Korea, we have a government policy, especially under the COVID-19 pandemic. Many people consider to order food deliver to their home, because the restaurant are very limited to accommodate people, and they must wear mask, face mask, and so on. So people, the food packaging result in significant plastic waste. So when we buy food, especially at any grocery store, instead of using the plastic bag, we have an incentive to give money back to consumer if they bring their own bag.
Oh, okay, that's a
like their own bag, not the plastic bag. So
yes,
we give some money bags in order to give some incentive to the customer. So if you need it, the plastic bag, you can ask but you have to pay certain amount of, depends on how many bags you need. So this is one of the government policy to discourage consumer to use plastic bag at the supermarket and any grocery store. So this is one of the policy. Another government policy we have is to encourage the recycling of plastics, bags, plastic, any plastic product, cell phone, textile, even the clothes, has a plastic fiber. So we use the recycling system in order to encourage people to think to reduce plastic waste. So there are several options that government are pursuing. One of the options is to discouraging to use the plastic bag, and also to encourage to use recycling of any plastic product. So if they don't want to use any more plastic product, like the empty bottles and so on, if you return to the grocery store market that you purchased it from, then they can give us some money back. So this is one of the way to encourage people to use the recycling program, and also discourage it to use plastic bag and so on. So one of the example. Another government policy nowadays is to encourage company to develop bioplastic, so biodegradable plastic product, because they think, the government think that biodegradable plastic are much better in terms of reducing the environment emission into the atmosphere, and reducing the carbon dioxide emission, because that the global warming potential has significant effect. As we know, significant precipitation, flooding, fire, especially from in California area, So the global warming is a significant issue. So there are many different options that government trying to develop.
Thank you. Okay, well, I'm sure then the Netherlands have biodegradable plastics at the grocery stores, because they're very strict about what their environmental policy. So thank you. I didn't know that. Yeah, biodegradable plastics. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ju, for answering.
Thank you. You're welcome.
So any other questions or comments? Okay, I guess there are no more. Anyways, thank you for your time and your presentation. It was informative. So now let's move on to our next presentation. So for the next presentation, we have Dr. Zahel Drira from the University of Fez, Tunisia. So yes, yeah, your screen is visible with your presentation.
It's okay. I can start.
Yeah, you can start the presentation.
Okay. I introduce myself. I am Zahel Drira from University of Fez. My research topic focus on the marine pollution. oceanography, and which have a main effect on phytoplankton and zooplankton, dynamic and spatial and temporal variation. So I am assistant professor. I am teaching the marine ecology, fundamental ecology, applied ecology, and my research topic focused on the pollution and the assessment. And today I talked about assessment of anthropogenic inputs in the surface water of the southern coast of Sfax during spring. And so, in introduction,
You can just click on the mouse so the slide will move, or enter might also work.
no?
A left click on the mouse.
The mouse.
Or you can just do the right click and go to next slide. Right click.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. In the introduction, we start in the marine environment. The coastal zone is considered to be a fragile and threatened space because there is a strong anthropogenic pressure. The expansion of the speed of large quantities of chemicals. The pollution can be assessed by a chemical kind due to the industrial discharges and urban waste, and the organic pollution which have recensed in the coastal marine area by eutrophication due to nutrient enrichment by nitrogen and phosphorus, and there is appearance of harmful algae blooms, turbidity, and hypoxia and anoxia. So the coast of Sfax is classified as a predominantly urban area in the Tunisia due to the phosphogypsum dam spike, strongly acidic discharge from SIAP, which is the manufacturing of treatment of phosphogyps. So there is a high amount of hydrocarbon and uncontrolled urban discharges, the case of the vegetable water. So we present now the main kind of pollution with the phosphogypsum dam spike, which present 30 hectare and 35 meter of height. Let's move now to present the discharges diffused directly into the sea area, loaded with chemical polluants and released directly in the sea water. So the third kind of pollution is the olive oil treatment wastewater released from marine effluent discharged in the sea water. All these sources of pollution contribute to the degradation of the seawater quality. This disturbance can be observed and evaluated by studying the different physical and chemical parameters. So this perturbation and the pollution can be assessed in the trophic food web chain. So by the transfer of CO2 by photosynthetic activity from phytoplankton, then in the organic matter in the zooplankton and fish. And it is important to know the role of the microbial loops which have the ciliate and the flagellatant bacteria as compounds to transfer the dissolved organic matter to particulate organic matter. So in our laboratory, which have focused in the pollution and the dynamic of pollution resulted in the phytoplankton and zooplankton, we try to evaluate the marine water pollution in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea from Tunisia. And we use then some biomarker or some bioindicator. As biomarker, we have used some the phytoplankton, zooplankton, protozoa, and ciliate as organism which will support and adapt the high pollution, and we have some publication. And for bioindicator, we use trace element, hydrocarbon, and some pesticides as bioindicator. For this, we have a problematic to assess the assessment. So the assessment of the water quality of the south coast of Sfax in order to subsequently by able to use the various transformation that the area has undergone. So the identification of the pollutant nature and using the fragility and dysfunction of this marine ecosystem. For this reason, we have as goals the study of the quantitative and the qualitative of the various sources of pollution responsible for the contamination of this area. And then the study the trophic statue of the south coast of Sfax is important role and determine the nature of the pollutant on the south coast of the city of Sfax through the study of the physical and chemical parameters. For material and method, we have the present. I begin by the presentation of the Gulf of Gabes, which is the study area. The Gulf of Gabes is celebrated by the most prolific fish production area, accounted from approximately in the 65% of the national production. Is characterized by the tide in the semi-diurnal with maximum range about 2 meters, a high biodiversity of fauna and flora, and endemic species as Posidonia oceanica. But nowadays is facing strong anthropogenic pressure, exotic species such as Portunisegnis and Colerpa taxipoli, which have perturbated the biodiversity. So now we look at the study of Sfax, which is in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea and is near to Kerkena Island, and this area is characterized by a high anthropogenic inputs. So we have sampling. Our sampling were taken by in the 20 station. And the localization of station is near to pollution inputs, in front of the pollution inputs, as the fishing port, outlet of Elmau, the manufacturing of treatment of phosphogyps, and is next to the solar salper of this region. So as we say that the localization of the station is near of manufacturing of SIAP, of phosphogypsum dam spite, of water waste treatment plants, and of some pollution in this area. We have measured some physical-chemical analysis, such as temperature, pH, transference, particulate suspended matter, salinity, and nutrient. And conductivity, turbidity, COD, and DOD. And we have measured also the anion, such as in surface water, in the superficial water, such as sulfate, chloride, bicarbonate, fluoride, calcium, potassium, magnesium, manganese, and iron. And we have also measured the total polyphonic content and the total flavonoid content. We have also measured the trace elements such as cadmium, cobalt, bronze, silver, iron, mercury, nickel, plomb, and zinc. Let's move now to results and discussion section. For the temperature, there is a mean of 16 in the mean in 16. From the about the pH it's about an alkaline pH is around of 8, and the salinity of the 38%. For the profile of suspended particulate matter and the transparency, look that there is was negative. The particulate suspended matter was negatively correlated with water transparency in this region. The conductivity and temperature was correlated positively, and there is a significant correlation between these two factors. And the measure and the maximum value was detected in front of the fishing port and maybe in the station, and the minimum in the station port. For nutrient compound, we looked at the nitrates were more important than ammonium and nitrate in all sampled stations. For orthophosphates, which has released by the manufacturing of treatment of phosphogyps, and we looked at the main of the high concentration were revealed in the station 9 in front of the manufacturing of sphax and outlet of the mouth. The N/P ratio, which was under 60, show that the nitrogen compound compared to phosphate was limited. We looked at the profile of DCO and orthophosphate, which have detected a significant positive correlation between this compound due to this high concentration of COD is induced by the high amount of orthophosphate revealed in this area. And the station 9 revealed the high value, also the high value of COD and orthophosphates. Let's move now to the biological degradation, the amount of oxygen for biological degradation, and the high value was revealed in station 10 in front. And the BOD and COD ratio was under 0.5 at all sampled stations, and proved that in this underscored a pollution of chemical origin. For the COD-BOD ratio, which was more than 3 ratio, highlighted the inorganic pollution load hard to degradable. So the station 9 revealed the high concentration of COD, low concentration of the ratio BOD-COD, the high amount of orthophosphates. Let's move now to see the contribution of the several anions analyzed in this study, and we looked at the chloride and carbonate is the major compound of anion. And the major concentration of these two dominant anions is revealed in station 9 in front of the manufacturing of CR and in front also of wastewater treatment plants and the phosphogypsum dam sites. For the cation, we have revealed that the calcium, sodium, manganese is the major compound contributed to the high fraction of the cation. For the trace element level, we have detected that the zinc, the mercury is the major pollutant as trace element detected in the coastal area of Sfax. From zinc is 77%, and from mercury is about 20%. So in this figure, we have detected that the fishing port is responsible for the pollution in the coastal area of Sfax by this kind of trace element. So the fishing port is the main problem releasing kind of trace element level. Let's move the statistical analysis, and we applied the composite principal analysis, and we looked at there is this kind of statistical analysis revealed that there is a group 1 which have enclosed the COD, the total flavonoid, the chloride, the sulfide, and the station 9, which was the main polluted area, which with orthophosphate, carbonate, and there is nitrate. However, the group 2, which enclosed the total heavy metal, the conductivity, the polyphenol, which have caused a big amount of polluant in this region. So we compared our results in the present study with which other anterior, research detected and measured in our region. For the silicate, there is amelioration of the concentration by the polluant. The orthophosphate between 2008 and 2012 and 2013 is evaluated and is more and more pollutant ratio. For the NP ratio, there is a decrease of this ratio. So for this reason, the trophic status of this region is in 2008 is the mesotrophic status, and now, and 2013 is intra-mesotrophic status. In conclusion, so phosphogypsum waste store closure due to the beach, where the main source of orthophosphate, chloride, and sulfate in seawater. The high content in total polyphenic compound was due to the release of the oil waste from margin. Thus, inorganic and inorganic inputs in the surface water was associated with evaluated COD. The BOD and COD ratio, which was under 0.5, and the COD-BOD, which was more than 3 ratio, highlighted a pollution of chemical origin and organic load hardly biodegradable. The southern coast of Sfax was underscored a pollution of chemical origin through the high amount of the orthophosphate released by Ilwed-Mau outlets and the SIAP manufactured in Sfax production, which was responsible for production of phosphate, phosphoric acid, and fertilizer. Some trace elements, mainly zinc, mercury, nickel, and plomb, were more important in station 1 and 2, near to the fishing port, which were subject of allochthonous pollution input, which exert a strong influence of the concentration of heavy metals in the seawater of the southern coast of France. For the outlook, we try to study the phenomena of the bioaccumulation of the main important of trace elements, mainly zinc, mercury, nickel, and plomb, in the phytoplankton, ciliate, and zooplankton. Orthophosphate chloride and sulfite and polyphenic compounds analyzed in this present study could be used as chemical marker in the framework of the future project of monitoring, management, and restoration of the southern coast of France. This trace element can be used as biomarker, recognized as an important approach for the assessment of pollution as chemical analysis of environmental samples alone provide evidence of impact of contaminants in the study area. This work was subject of publication in Marine Pollution Bulletin. And finally, I would like to thank you for your attention. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Zahir, for your presentation. So, yeah, do we have any questions? Any questions for Dr. Zahir Drira, or any comments? I guess there are no questions, so thank you for your presentation, Dr. Zahir.
Okay, thank you.
Now let's move on to our next presentation. And the next presentation is by Dr. Prabal Barua from Jahangirnagar University, Bangladesh. So, yeah, your screen is visible to us.
Thank you so much. This is Prabal Barua. I am working in a NGO named IPSHA as a program officer. And recently I got a PhD in environmental sciences from Jahangirnagar University. So is it available? It is everyone see this?
You are audible and also your screen is visible.
Okay.
But could you just
Thank you
try
so
making
much.
it a slideshow so that this your presentation will be visible clearly?
Okay, thank you. I am good evening. My presentation topics is coastal. This is my actually PhD topics: coastal erosion trend and integration of community-based resettlement approach for sustainable solution of climate displacement. Actually, you all know Bangladesh is most vulnerable country due to climate change and due to climate change induced natural disaster. Displacement event is common scenario for Bangladesh. According to Global Climate Risk Index 2021, 744,000 people displaced in last year due to cyclone, flood, and coastal erosion. Yes, it is the pictures of what is the impact of climate change in Bangladesh due to cyclone, coastal erosion, salinity intrusion, poverty, and other types of natural disaster. Due to climate change, people are losing their land and livelihood. They lose their livelihood. They become and create poverty level, and then lastly they forced to migrate it in new places for living. But at that time, the new living places also they are suffering with identity, social identity, the social harmony, and other conditions. So my topics is based on how many people are displaced from my study areas and how are this process for adaptation to resolve their crisis. My research question is, according to my presentation, I want to focus on what types of vulnerability is responsible for displacement due to destruction of the inhabitants of southeastern coast, what are the rate of coastal erosion in the study area, and what types of indigenous knowledge are existing in the area, what types of barriers are creating programs for effective performance of the adaptation in response of climate change program, and what are the sustainable adaptation solutions for resolve that crisis. So I told about the earlier, what are the suffering of climate displaced people? They become landless, they become homeless, and etc. Suffer from landless livelihood security. When they live in the embankment or roadside, they got they
I guess it's a network issue. So
I think Prabal facing something problem. Hello.
yes, I guess there is a network issue by Dr. Prabhu. So let's just wait for a few seconds, or I'll just make a call and just find out the issue. So yeah, we're just trying to contact Dr. Prabal, and maybe in the meantime we can just move on with our next presentation, just not to take much of your time. So maybe once Dr. Prabal comes back, so we'll have his presentation next. So I hope everyone is okay with that. So if you're okay, then we can just move on to our next presentation.
Okay.
So let's have our next presentation by Dr. Dave White from Climate Change Truth Inc. USA. So this was a presentation that we were supposed to be having yesterday, but yeah, we are having it today. So yes, Dr. Dave. Yeah, your screen is visible.
Anyway, all right. Well, thank you. Sorry about yesterday. I had some computer issues. This is my published manuscript discovery, reduction in photosynthesis correlation to atmospheric carbon dioxide increase. The agenda today is, first of all, atmospheric carbon dioxide is not an emissions issue. We've tried, it doesn't work. And the second thing is sea level rise is 1.4 millimeters per year linear and not accelerating. So first thing is follow the data. Don't follow an agenda. Always follow the data. Perform statistical analysis, those kind of things. Global Carbon Atlas, I'll show you why it's not our emissions, where we are, the growth rate at Mauna Loa, where we're going, the future, photosynthesis issues, the correct solution for atmospheric carbon dioxide with results, stunning results actually, and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Global Warming potential model is fake. So as I said, follow the data, not an agenda. Use all the data and don't cherry pick. See what the data says. All models must be verified with actual data. And this presentation is a result of following the data. And Nature Climate Change is a better journal now. Previously, they were a garbage journal publishing garbage manuscripts and circular referencing them in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports. But as of last June, they're a better journal now. Global Carbon Atlas, we've had a 16% decrease in carbon dioxide in the USA since 2006. And since 1990, a 21% decrease in CO2 in Europe. However, only India and China are still increasing. The graph on the left is the graph you've seen before that makes it look like the emissions are the cause of the rise of CO2. However, the graph on the right, you can see since 2014, we've had mostly flat emissions and a couple of drops the last few years. The most notable one, the 7% drop last year, was from COVID. And atmospheric CO2 still went up. This dropped the correlation coefficient to 0.63. So there's no relationship between the emissions and the CO2 rise statistically. And this is the growth rate at Mauna Loa. You can see on the graph on the left, the difference each year, peak to peak, is less than 3 parts per million. And this is the cycling you can see in the graph on the right. Now, where we're going, the average residence time is 150 years. It was 5 years. Most work is on emission reduction, reforestation efforts going on. The main thing I want to point out here is that atmospheric CO2 is extra that's not consumed by photosynthesis. And then I'll show you a graph in a little bit. The assumptions here keep emissions at about 35 billion tons annually. Decreases in emissions will be offset by increases in population. Atmospheric carbon dioxide stays the same slope because of loss of photosynthesis. And at 100 years or more, no more oil, so carbon dioxide emissions drop by 30%. Next, I'll show you the average residence time. These are 19 published manuscripts. They're not all shown here on the right on average residence time. The average residence time for CO2 is 150 years. This is why there's no effect from anything we have done with emissions or will do with emissions of CO2. And these are some well-known things that happened to oil embargo in the 1970s. We still have no effect of that time. For 2 years or so, we would have had 60–70% reduction of emissions. I mean, I lived through that time. Our family, we could only buy 2 gallons of gasoline a week. So the emissions were very low. But still, in the actual data on the graph on the right, there's no effect of that. No effect of multiple recessions, no effect of the worldwide recession in 2009, and as I showed earlier, no effect from COVID-19. And then if you have Netflix, there's a movie you should watch called Kiss the Ground. It's also on YouTube. It's also on the homepage of cctruth.org. There they show the proper way to farm without chemicals, plus they also explain how even if we quit breathing, it won't lower atmospheric CO2. And then this is a graph I made from those assumptions that I talked about earlier. You can see that atmospheric CO2 never lowers by working on emissions of CO2. And Pearson regression, because it's not cause and effect, you do regression by target. You find out that CO2 emissions correlate to a value of 363 parts per million, and as I said before, are not the cause of the rise of CO2. And the third reason why it's not our emissions, the graph on the right shows clearly that 90% of people in the world live in the northern hemisphere. 90% of our emissions would look like the graph on the left. We'd have an increase in the summertime when there's more economic activity in the northern hemisphere, and then a decrease in the fall when there isn't much temperature change, so there isn't needed of heat yet, but also there isn't needed of air conditioning. And then in the middle of the winter, there'd be more emissions because we're burning fossil fuels to heat our homes and businesses. That is what Mauna Loa would look like if it was our emissions. But the Mauna Loa actually looks like the cycle, as I showed before, is detailed in the graph below. You can see decreases in the summertime when it's summertime in the northern hemisphere. And as a chemical engineer, we're taught 80-some tank models. And this is the simplest tank model we're taught, and that's the like a kitchen sink model, and it accurately describes atmospheric carbon dioxide. The inputs are human carbon dioxide and natural carbon dioxide, decay, animals, those kinds of things. And the issues, we have the tank filling and the residence time increasing. The residence time is like standing water in your kitchen sink. The water's residing longer. And so the tank filling is the atmospheric CO2 increasing, and the residence time is increasing, as I explained. And so if you came home, you had standing water in your kitchen sink, which is what residence time is, you would shut off the input and fix the drain. Well, we can't shut off the input because we have all these natural emissions of CO2. So we need to fix the drain, and the drain is photosynthesis mainly and diffusion of CO2. So what photosynthesis could be 55 parts per million. And just to find that out, we see that atmospheric winds mix the carbon dioxide throughout the latitudes. They're pretty consistent throughout the latitudes, and actually all greenhouse gases are well mixed by atmospheric winds. And this is the more detail on the Mauna Loa harmonic trend. You can see a strong signal, the yellow line, in the southern hemisphere. So the photosynthesis issue is in the southern hemisphere mainly. And so photosynthesis issues, we have city sprawl, the IPCC falsely estimates, and the deforestation of the Amazon, and more than 300 billion tons of lost CO2 consumption annually from the Amazon rainforest switching, which is 19 times our emissions output. If that hadn't happened, we wouldn't have any issue with CO2. And this is our equilibrium manuscript, the first manuscript to define net zero CO2 emissions. Net zero CO2 emissions has never been defined. It's a fake fallacy of a variable that politicians and other scientists use that has never been defined. And the actual value is 8.6 billion tons. Northern Hemisphere forests only consume 2.6 gigatons of CO2 per year. That's a published manuscript where many scientists measured tree trunk growth over 10 years in Northern Hemisphere forests like North America, Europe, and Asia, Russia, those kind of things. And all tropical forests in the Southern Hemisphere have switched to become oxygen consumers and carbon dioxide producers from organic decay. Sure, certainly we have a 5 times increase in emissions of CO2, mainly from fossil fuel burning, but we have a 97% decrease in photosynthesis worldwide. This is a much larger issue. And also, the ocean is not a sink for atmospheric CO2. The diffusion of CO2 is in the troposphere, is towards the exosphere. The PMEL manuscript that started this garbage ocean is a sink got their diffusion flux backwards. The World Economic Forum has rightly said that we need to plant 1 trillion trees. Actually, 200 billion trees will be fine. 35 billion tons of human emissions, 3 billion from deforestation. The Amazon rainforest itself is 15 billion tons of unaccounted for CO2 annually. So actually, our emissions in the world of CO2 are around 50, not 35. This graph is Global Forest Watch. The map there, you can see the purple is non-sustainable deforestation. And the white is where there used to be trees and there's no trees now. We've removed over around 3 trillion trees from the earth. And this is the sole reason why CO2 is going up, not enough consumption. And the cause of the rise of the CO2 is the deforestation and destruction of 30 million acres a year of the Amazon rainforest. Correlation coefficient 0.99. These guys have been using what's going on in the Amazon and calling it emissions of CO2 and wanting us to do all these crazy things like windmills and solar panels or fairy tales. On the homepage of cctruth.org, you'll see a link to a YouTube video, How to Ruin an Electric Grid in 3 Easy Steps. Australia already tried what the UN wants to do and failed miserably. And this is some facts about the Amazon. They started deforestation in 1950. In 1957, the carbon dioxide rise started. And in 1970, trees and plants started toppling over because of the extra CO2 from the burning. And they grew too fast and toppled over. In the 1990s, it changed over to an oxygen sink and a carbon dioxide producer. We've lost over 20% of Earth's oxygen production, as I'll show you in a minute. And this is what they do in the Amazon, 30 million acres a year. You think this has anything to do with the CO2 rise? Of course it does. And then this is loss of oxygen worldwide. You can see it cycles the same way as the increase in CO2. These two are tied together, and this is a 0.98 cause and effect. Actually, it's negative. It should have negative correlation. 0.98 to the reduction of oxygen. So these two things are coupled together. It's another proof of the effect of the Amazon. So the correct solution is a moratorium on Amazon deforestation and to plant native shrubs and trees all over the world and stop deforestation in India and everywhere where it's not sustainable. And these are planting ideas. These are on the government policy on cctruth.org. And I have some results here. After planting 1 billion trees, we had flat CO2 for the first time in 70 years in December timeframe of 2019. And last year, in the early spring, we had flat CO2 for the first time in 70 years, when it normally goes up 1.5 parts per million per month. This is the effect of 12 billion trees planted and stopping the Indian rainforest from destruction. These links here are my fault. And then Mauna Loa committed fraud last year. We had flat CO2, as I explained. Then the analyzer went down, and when it came back up, the difference in the value was exactly 1.500 parts per million in the average. And so they committed fraud. They saw that it hadn't risen for, it was actually a month and a half, and they know it rises 1.5 parts per million per month. So they put in an offset. And when Peru stopped deforestation in December, we have an article people have been tweeting to the leaders of the Amazon for over 2 years, and Peru stopped deforestation in December. We had flat CO2 in January for the first time again in 70 years. Then we have an experiment on US 26 East in Oregon. The tree deer area here on the right, the trees are consuming all the CO2 from 160,000 vehicles per day and more. As you can see in the graph below, I have two National Institute of Standards and Technology certified carbon dioxide sensors calibrated within 1 part per million each. And this graph, the data from it is guaranteed by the US government. And Oregon Department of Transportation gave me this permit to do this experiment, and it proves plus or minus 50 degrees latitude, we can plant native shrubs and trees next to roads, and they'll consume all the CO2 from the vehicles. And then this is our article. You can find this on the homepage of cctruth.org. You can tweet this as well. Over 1,000 people are doing that per week. And then I'll show you how carbon dioxide does not freeze in the mesosphere. The pressure is 1 millibar in the mesosphere, and the temperature is minus 90, but the freezing point of CO2 in that pressure is minus 104. Then 20 PhDs and I participated in expert and government review of the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change reports and found all kinds of garbage in their reports. In the mitigation chapter, when Jim Skea said we need to lower our emissions by 45%, he was basing that on a statement in SR 1.5 that had no references to anything. They completely made it up. And the actual equilibrium is 8.6 billion tons, as I showed you in our equilibrium manuscript. And their probability in their document for their solution to work is 50 to 66%. And because of our 20 PhD review, what we do is we get the comments all together for each chapter, and then each of us submit them separately. So they're getting them from over 20 different PhDs. The comments go, and we forced these two statements were buried. The equilibrium statement was on page 90 in that chapter, and the probability table was on page 100. But now, as of last Saturday, I looked, this is the 5th paragraph in their executive summary. And in the red there, that's the statement that Jim Skea was using. You can see no references to anything, complete garbage science. They made it up. And the blue down below is that what I was talking about. This is from their document. It has the references to their chart numbers there. And their probability of their solution is 66%. Planting a tree is 100%. And then working group 1, we found a bunch of garbage in there. Their global warming potential model is fake because it assumes equal greenhouse gas concentrations, which will never happen in reality. Also, they ignored 14 published manuscripts with the correct order of greenhouse gases that was in their appendix number 2, or annex 2, they call it. And I'll show you a little bit. The sea level rise is 1.4 millimeters per year linear and not accelerating. And working group 3, actually their report was the best. Just the same use of unscientific terms like highly unlikely or likely, and where they should use percent probability. And as I showed before, the graph they say is cause and effect of emissions has not been updated since 2012. And again, on Netflix or on the homepage of cctruth.org, you can watch Kiss the Ground movie. This is their global warming potential and how methane is less effective a greenhouse gas. Dr. Blasing of Oak Ridge National Laboratory exposed greenhouse gases and had the same order of greenhouse gas effect as those 14 published manuscripts in Annex 2 of Working Group 1 report. And then quickly I'll go through this global sea rise. There's no, well, first of all, is this going to happen? No, it's not going to happen. The satellite that they use to measure global sea rise has a minimum resolution of 25 millimeters. And they say they're measuring a 3.3 minimum millimeter per year rise, which is physically impossible. There's no reliability in their data. And this is a tide gauge distribution. They're reliable and accurate. They're all over the world. This is the data from the satellite. It's linear, not accelerating. And this is the tide gauges, and they're linear and not accelerating. There's some of them decreasing, not increasing in sea level rise. So the summary, atmospheric carbon dioxide is not caused by carbon emissions. It's caused by a loss of photosynthesis, massive loss of photosynthesis. Trees release terpenes, which induce rain. And as I said, if you watch that movie, Kiss the Ground, they'll show the proper way to farm without chemicals. They'll also explain how fast they say that drawdown, which is the increase of photosynthesis, is the only way to lower CO2. They say anything else is climate chaos, which it is. And my contact information is there. Thank you to the International Journal of Chemical Engineering and Journal of Environmental Science and Development, where this manuscript was dual peer-reviewed and published, this conference, and your kind attention. And I'll answer questions now.
Presentation. So yeah, do we have any questions?
I have one inquiry to Dr. Devi about sea level rising.
Yes.
We live in third world countries, that is South Asian countries, Bangladesh. Actually, because of climate change and the related factor, temperature, carbon dioxide, it will be increasing day by day, and sea level, water level is rising. This is a scientific statement. But in case of Southeast Asian countries like Bangladesh, India, what is your assumption about this area, about sea level rising?
Well, like I said, well, yes, thank you for that question. The sea level rise is 1.4 millimeters per year linear and not accelerating. in Oregon here at the coast, I can go down to the coast. The sea level rise is really, it looks no difference. I mean, 1.4 millimeters per year is very small. And in 100 years, you won't have, but a few inches of rise. So this idea that the Jacobson Glacier has grown for the last 3 years. It's not melting anymore. So this idea of global sea rise, and the other thing is like I showed you in the tide gauges, some of them were decreasing. The reason for that is iceberg with the ice on the frozen part underneath. When it melts, water has this unique property where when it freezes, it expands, but when it melts, it contracts. So that lowers sea level. The sea level actually lowers and not increases.
Okay, thank you, Devi, for your nice presentation. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay.
So any other questions or comments? Guess that is it, Dr. Dev. Thank you for your presentation. It
Thank
was
you.
informative and interesting.
You're
So
welcome.
I guess we can now, start again with Dr. Prabal Barua. So yes, Dr. Prabal, I have made you the presenter.
Yes, sorry for the technical problem.
Dr. Prabal, I just have a suggestion, in case if you're still having that network, maybe just switch off the mic. Presentation properly.
Thank you so much. Sorry for the problem. My topics was coastal erosion trend and integration of community-based resettlement approach for sustainable solution of climate displacement crisis. This is I'm presenting my Dr. Prabhabu. I'm working in IPSA and non-government organization of Bangladesh, and also I just achieved my PhD in Jahangirnagar University. So I mentioned in my presentation at Jahangirnagar University. So thank you. I already mentioned it, so I forward yes advance. Oh, due to okay, Bangladesh is highly vulnerable to climate change, and due to climate change, natural disaster is very common phenomenon in Bangladesh. And for this natural disaster, like cyclone, coastal erosion, flood, drought, and other disaster is creating huge destruction of the property of people. They lost their livelihood. They become they lost their land, house, and become displaced. And lastly, they become climate migrants. And the people are migrants from their land, living land and origin, and they are living in new places. It's called urban city, rural urban migration. So crisis displacement and migration crisis is very common phenomenon and creating huge problem in the country. On the basic questionnaire and my theme of the presentation was types of vulnerabilities responsible for displacement, what is the rate of coastal erosion, what types of indigenous knowledge are existing in that area, what types of barriers are creating in the study area, and what are the adaptation measures for working a solution of sustainable adaptation. The major suffering of climate displaced people, they have become landless, homeless people. Their livelihood are insecure. They are inaccessible to basic services, food, education, health, safe water, sanitation, and deprived of cultural harmony. And so, for that reason, different types of adaptation we are in the world and also in Bangladesh, we are focusing on based on adaptation practice. They are community-based adaptation, which are basically practicing by communities for their surrounding area to resolve the to coping the practices against disaster, against losses due to natural disaster, ecosystem-based adaptation, basically government, non-government, and also people for their plantation or ecosystem generation or ecosystem-based adaptation. And now we have the basic focusing on sustainable adaptation. The sustainable adaptation means what are the mixing of environment, social, and economic process of the communities or any other government for what will be sustainable. We are now all the in the country and all the focusing on sustainable adaptation, because this is now times for resilience, community resilience against natural disaster, and people are adaptive features for their survival. Then the basic aim and objective of my research work was to investigate the coastal erosion pattern, climate displacement pattern, and assessment of integration for community-based resettlement approach for southeastern coast of Bangladesh. To do this investigation, we work on quantitative approach and questionnaire survey. The questionnaire survey in the 3 coastal islands, which is in southeastern island, means Kutubdia, Bashkari, and Kutubdia, Moshkari, and Shandip conducted the study. There are 385 household survey and secondary the literature review and negative analysis for the process of research work. Then some statistical tool I use for concluding the research work. This is the map of 3 coastal islands, Shandip, Kutubdia, and Moshkari. Both are the coastal islands, and this is based on southeastern coast. And both location, the location are exist long time history of coastal erosion, people migration, and common phenomenon of natural disaster due to like cyclone, erosion for the long time. So for this reason, I did explore the rate of coastal erosion. Landsat image, satellite image has been used for from 1975 to 2015. GS 10.4 GS software used for the rate of assessment of the erosion over the shoreline changes in the area. Then there are 11 principles for analysis of sustainable adaptation. This is the effectiveness of potential mitigation, implementation ability, of present need, feasibility, economic viability. If when we find the adaptation, we'll try what types of adaptation will be sustainable. Then we focusing the adapted option according to this evaluation criteria, and then the main three category: high, medium, and low. If the adaptation option with the found in the study area, we will try to evaluate what types of adaptation will be sustainable according to the community perception. Then I analyze the DPSIF framework, driver, pressure, state, impact, and response framework for analysis the what types of adaptation practice are going on and what will be the major problem and major solution for the people solution of people crisis. This is my result and discussion. The morphological changes of Kutubdia over 43 years from 1975 to 2018. We found that southern side of the Kutubdia is eroded from basically 1985, and then after 1991, super cyclone happened in the southeastern coast when 150,000 people died, and that time from the erosion is happening in more erosion is happening in enormously in the iron, and we found that one and two large area of Kutubdia submerged into the Bay of Bengal, and 50,000 people forced to leave the places at the 1991 and 1997 cyclone. This is the ocean of Shandip, when the eastern side is mostly mostly eroded, is the red side, and then after the 2000, the southern and northern side also eroding because of the morphological changes of the sea, morphological feature of iron is changes, and also the large ocean, Bay of Bengal location, Shandip location is also changed, and for that reason, ocean is going to hit back to the iron enormously. This is the map of Maheshkhali. According to compare of the figure, we found more less erosion than Shandip and Maheshkhali, but some part of in 2015 erosion is increasing in the Maheshkhali but the people is lost. People migrated few because the area where it is eroded is not human living condition. It is the changing of the study area. During 1975, the area of Kutubdia was 73 square miles. Now area of the iron is 65 square miles. So we found that the area of Kutubdia decreasing 0.24 times every year, and also Shandip decreasing 0.822 times. And I mentioned about that iron is pattern is Maheshkhali is reduced, but the increasing is 1.174 times every year because there are some chore or land is going on around the Maheshkhali. So the new area is going on, and for that reason the rate is increasing here. And what are the socioeconomic and effect of climate in the displacement? Because of family losses of the displacement, people losing their family members, casualty, house degradation, and then they become the property, limited livelihood, low income. Then they go to the migration, go to decision for migration, and then what are the situation of the new places for relocation? They are isolated from mainstream society, social stratification is going on, depression by local politics. So there is a different problem is creating for them, the displaced people. And what types of displacement occur? They are the temporary displacement, permanent local displacement, and the permanent internal displacement. Because when the displaced, they go to the they firstly go to the iron, and if they no have option to review, they go to the another district or survival, and if they have no right option, secure their livelihood, they go to the regional displacement. This is the figure of what are the natural disasters during from the 1960 to 2016. There are 30 major cyclones occurred in the southeastern coast, and 5,74,000 people forced to displace from the southeastern Bangladesh. But what type of among the 5,75,000 people, Bangladesh only possible rehabilitate to 5,000 sorry 8,000 people in the government rehabilitation program. So vast numbers of people are living in the coastal embankment, roadside, and other places, which was they are major insecure problem for the country. So now I focus on indigenous knowledge. There are Bangladesh people of Bangladesh as a familiar of natural disaster. They are familiar to different types of indigenous practice. And this is the co-management framework where this is how they integrate their management in the study area for adapting some kinds of indigenous knowledge and also ecosystem. They are going to the mango plantation, coastal livelihood support, aquaculture, best management practice, integrated coastal management. If the process of co-management, they are trying to adopt the best, and if any institution or the process is co-management, sustainable co-management, the adaptive features or adaptive resilience practice will be best implementation for the community dependent community. This is the integration of approach, management approach. If we go to the coastal integration of coastal tourism, salt production, fishing and fishermen, community livelihood, shrimp farming, for integration of sustainable management, natural resource management, coastal process management, the best process for integrated resource management will be successful. And there are, during the study area, during the survey and field visit, we found that 20 types of adaptation options identified by which are going on in the field area. If we integrate all the process, coastal afforestation with embankment, vertical grass plantation, short duration and flood resilience agricultural production, trees around the homestead, permanent will be mix up. Then will be adaptation which will be sustainable for the people. DPSI framework means also we found that for why people are displacing, then the response is people going different livelihood practices, embankment is repairing is going on, mango plantation is going on, rehabilitation is going on, but all the process will be successful if the will be permanent solution. Found the permanent solution for resolve the crisis. So risk management I applied because during the any kinds of the Bangladesh is a learning center for adaptation for the world community. So, but there are so many funds coming in Bangladesh for successful adaptation, but there is there are many risks are identified. If we take the rehabilitation program, the actual identification of displaced people become high risk because everyone says they are displaced, but actual identification is creating problem. Then areas reaction for relocation. It is a major question. Bangladesh is a disaster-prone country. When we take the government land for relocation, but under some few days, this will be their land are eroded and also flooded. So land areas reaction is becoming a creating major problem. Then upholding and people ensuring rights of people for the host community become also problem because host community for is not so many sympathy to the displaced people, and they become of identity crisis. People are losing their people have a some kinds of problem for mixing the people. Since long time, there are the adaptation fund is coming in Bangladesh, and also we are going on research as what type adaptation will be successful. But when the implementation in the field level activities and also in the research based, we found major barriers for adaptation with the economic barriers, institutional barriers, ecosystem barriers are found, and social and cultural barriers are existing because the economy is funding when the people we are going to the coastal communities for ensuring the best practices or the maintain, but that because of economic crisis they are not successfully implement or practicing on time, and then information technological barriers is major problem for successful adaptation. Then we are after my research work we to the community-based relocation program. Although we are talking about the talking about the people social program in the people, but actually the mass adaptation program in the institutional program is going on. Adaptation or rehabilitation program is going on first side from the local community. If we are trying to focus the rehabilitation program inside the community, and there's a top-bottom approach. If the areas selection of displaced people, they are the area process, and it depends. They are selected by local community for their best choices in area selection. If the for not people are not going to the fireplaces for their survival. It is also called community-based resettlement process. If we organize this process, the people, displaced people, living people will not be identified crisis. And this is the some kinds of community-based rehabilitation model. According to my local NGOs and other NGOs, for selection of displaced people, we go to the survey, and when we selected among the community villages, and then go to the rehabilitation program. In that, this is the the displaced people not go to the park places; they are go to the inside the villages. If the people have not so many disgusted, they are agree to resettle displaced people inside their village, and it people are living there for the 6 years for 6 years, and this is the model for community-based resettlement approach. And this is the displacement erosion scenario and also eruptive scenario of the coastal area of Bangladesh. And if we found a way forward, all climate displaced persons have human rights, laws and policies must be created to protect the human rights, participation of local community necessary for relocation, religion, ethnic and professional displaced are needed considered before relocation process. When we not consider the religion and ethnic minority for other relocation, the process relocation is not successful, and absence of legal framework delay the process, and movement of the island area not during the bad weather, and political pressure during household selection is creating major problem. And big gap between demand and supply. I told about that there are the 30 major cyclone occurred where 540,000 people displaced. But in the three coastal island, institutionally only 5,000 people rehabilitated. So there's a big gap for this rehabilitation program. So if we consider about sustainable management for the displaced people, we need the strong coordination among within stakeholders to ensure safe and risk-free rehabilitation places, to ensure community-based resettlement program, to ensure human rights, to ensure the implementation of laws and relating to climate change, and to accountability, transparency during the caution distribution and also government state program. And recently, Bangladesh government primarily conduct the national strategies on climate, national strategies on permanent resettlement for climate-induced displaced people, which is we are hoping for permanent solution for the displaced people. Okay. So we want to always giving fund and food support and financial support for displaced people, climate change affected people. We always want to sustainable livelihood for disaster affected people. We never want to such kind of we want permanent crisis of disaster affected people in the coastal area will be solved. My publication is published in various journals, International Journal of Climate Strategies and Management, Migration, Residential Mobility, pollution, and two book chapters recently published from Springer and IUP Journal of Knowledge Management about the sustainable adaptation of displaced people, about the relocation process, and also coastal erosion process of the three coastal islands. Thank you so much and giving me opportunity for again presentation for in the international conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your presentation, Dr. Prabal. So yeah, do we have any questions?
Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Dr. Binay.
Yeah. I want to ask something.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Prabal Bura, for your nice presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Impact on climate change. You work on landless, workless people and the disaster area of Chittagong and Cox's Bazar area. And you already approach the adaptation, community adaptation, ecosystem-based adaptation, sustainable adaptation, and adaptation coastal erosion on three islands, that is Kutubdia, Sandip, and Maheskali. And you also work, you form a co-management and work with that people, that area development for that area and the for the people. But just I want to know from you why you choose these three places. Why not you included Monpura, Bhula, Putuakali, or mangrove area like this? This is my.
Yes, actually, I choose this study area because there are major three coastal islands on the Kutubia. The islands are mostly eroded, and we found the long history of the erosion in this Sandip, Maheskali, and Kutubia. For this region, I choose the study area of this area. And you told about that the erosion of the Bhoga, Monpura, Sundarban. Okay, and because
not Sundarban, but territory of Sundarban. Actually, the erosion of Monpura, Bhula is very critical situation. Because I visited so many times this area for my official work. For that reason, I want to say you.
Yeah, thank you. I know that the island was also erosion prone, but my topics was based on southeastern coast. For that reason,
okay. I think it is up to depends on your supervisor.
Yes.
It may be. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So yeah, do we have any other questions or comments? I guess thank you for your time and your presentation. No questions.
Thank you.
So yeah, let's move on to our next presentation then. So our next presentation is by Dr. Shankar Narayan Sinha from University of Kalyani, India. So Dr. Shankar, are you available online? You can just go back and open the PowerPoint presentation that you'd like to show us. Yeah. Your screen is visible to us. Please unmute yourself so that we'll be able to hear you. You are being on mute. Yeah. Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. Good evening all to you. The, the title of my presentation is Pollution Load of Indicator Bacteria in relation to Physico-Chemical Factors during DL cycle of River Ganges, India. Now, before starting of my presentation, I am very much thankful to organizer for giving me a chance to deliver this presentation before the August gathering. Okay, now we know that for the last few decades, public concerns has been voiced about the pollution of rivers and all other aquatic ecosystems, and this is not exception in case of the river Ganges in India. Now, pollution of our environment has become a serious problem due to rapid increase of human population, urbanization and industrialization. India with a dense population is getting polluted by the unhygienic way of living. Most Indian rivers today fall short of Central Pollution Control Board standards due to excessive pollution by untreated sewage as well as domestic and industrial wastes. People without concerning anything dump organic waste, garbage and filth in the flowing rivers for their easy disposal. Now, several studies are conducted in India and abroad on different riverine ecosystem in threatened with sewage pollution. Now we have studied in a particular area of the lower zone of streams of the Ganges river, a small town, Ichapur town, located in the latitude of 22°.8° north and 88.36 degree east of West Bengal, India, lies on the eastern bank of the river Ganga. It serves as mother dustbin for several industries and town sewage throughout the range in plains. At Devitola Ghat, near about 10 to 20 megagallons per day of domestic sewage from township is dumped regularly. The town serves as a load of more than 2 lakhs of people, while urbanization in all fronts are increasing day by day. Little information is available on the pollutional load contributed by the drain water to the riverine ecosystem in this area. So with this perspective in mind, the present work has been undertaken with the following objectives. The aim of the present study was to assess the degree of contamination by estimating the physico-chemical properties and bacterial pollution load of the drain water caused by the continuous discharge of the raw effluents into the river. Let us come to the methodology. The water samples were collected from the Devitola Ghat, a sewage outfall area of river Ganga at Ichapur town, West Bengal, for the investigation of fluctuation in physico-chemical and bacterial parameters. Water samples were collected at few hours interval for 24 hours. Say for example 9, 12 hours, 14 hours, 17 and 20 hours. Water samples are collected in sterilized glass bottles aseptically and transported to the laboratory in an ice bucket. Now, analysis of physico-chemical parameters of water samples. Physico-chemical parameters of the water were analyzed by the following standard methods of American Public Health Association, APHA. Regarding bacteriological analysis, the various water pollution indicating bacteria were isolated on selected media such as eosin methylene blue medium for total coliform and fecal coliform bacteria, which is commonly recognized as the pollution indicator bacteria, and sodium azide medium for the fecal streptococci. For isolation of the total coliform, incubation is done at 37 degrees Celsius, whereas for fecal coliform and fecal streptococci, incubation is done at 44.5 degrees Celsius. Let us come to the enumeration of bacteria. Bacterial counts were made following 5-tube most probable number technique. Now, statistical analysis were done. All the experimental data were statistically analyzed by using SPSS software package. Now, regarding results and discussion, this graph indicates the diurnal variation in temperature of the river Ganga. The results indicated that the river water temperature showed a definite diurnal trend. An increase in temperature during daytime and decrease in the night hours was observed. The lowest water temperature, 18 degrees Celsius, was recorded at 20 hours in the night. The maximum 29 degrees Celsius temperature was noted at 14 hours. The river water was alkaline throughout the DL cycle between 7.2 and 8.2 pH. So this graph showing the variation of pH in the river Ganga. Now the DL cycle, usually lower pH was observed during DL cycle at night. This might be due to the appearance of free carbon dioxide. It also increases the bicarbonate concentrations. The conversion of carbonate to free carbon dioxide depicts the change in the buffer system, which lowers the pH. Next, the dissolved oxygen content. The dissolved oxygen content ranged from 7.2 to 8.4 milligram per liter. It was recorded maximum at 9 hours, 8.4 milligram per liter, and minimum at 14 hours. The high concentration of dissolved oxygen in the morning is due to the low temperature, which enhances the oxygen dissolving capacity. During daytime, the higher dissolved oxygen might be due to increased photosynthetic activity. The increase in temperature degraded the DO concentration declined the DO concentration at 12 hours, which shows the inverse relation between temperature and DO. Bicarbonate values range between 162 to 190 milligram per liter. The total hardness 900 to 1170 milligram per liter, and calcium hardness as shown in the figure 620 to 1100 milligram per liter, those significant dial cycle. Next, let us come to the very important physical properties of the water, which is known as electrical conductivity. The electrical conductivity of water varied narrowly, so 575 to 600 micromoles per centimeter. This value shows, then that is not you. Table. Yes. No. Correlation table. Yes, correlation. This is a correlation matrix. So this table showed correlation among different physicochemical parameters throughout DL cycle. Significant positive correlations are noted between pH and temperature, electrical conductivity and temperature, pH and electrical conductivity, and total hardness and calcium hardness. On the contrary, significant inverse correlation were noted between total hardness and dissolved oxygen, as well as calcium hardness and dissolved oxygen. Next table. This table shows the correlation coefficient between physicochemical parameters and pollution indicator bacteria. Now the total coliform showed significant positive correlation with temperature, pH, and electrical conductivity, whereas the fecal coliform showed significant inverse correlation with dissolved oxygen. On the other hand, fecal streptococci showed significant positive correlation with temperature, pH, electrical conductivity, and significant inverse correlation with dissolved oxygen. Now, this show the graphs. Graphs show bacteria. Yes. Now, the variation in bacterial load showed distinct diurnal fluctuation. At 14 hours, the MPN of coliform remained a peak with a value of 13 to 10 to the power 4 MPN per 100 ml. The MPN of fecal coliform and fecal streptococci is always more than 1 throughout the diurnal cycle, depicting the fecal nature of sewage, which is more hazardous. When the fecal coliform to fecal streptococci ratio is below 0.7, the contamination is said to be non-human sources. And when the ratio is over 4.3, it indicates anthropogenic contamination. Therefore, the use of fecal coliform and fecal streptococci ratio may further define possible sources of fecal discharge to a stream. The results indicated pollutional nature of the river caused by the fecal matter. The high dilution capacity of the river Ganga round the year is responsible for reduction of pollution status of drain water to some extent. Let us conclude. Conclusion. So it may be concluded from this study that a marked DL variation were observed in selected physiological and bacteriological parameter during 24 hours. It was observed that river water in this stretch is being heavily polluted by the discharge of sewage. It can thus be suggested that water treatment plant should be installed in this area immediately, where the huge amount of sewage is being discharged continuously in the river. Thank you for patience hearing.
Thank you, Dr. Shankar. So do we have any questions?
Yeah, I am Dr. Chakraborty speaking. Thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Narayan Sinha, for your excellent presentation on pollution load of indicator bacteria in relation to physicochemical factors during the cycle of river Ganga at Isapur, West Bengal, India. So far, so as per I know, the Ganga is a highly polluted river, not only India, I think in the world. In Bangladesh, Dhaka, Buriganga also. But actually, you are found so many physicochemical factors which are ups and down for a normal result. What is the plan of your government to minimize this pollution? This is my not a question. I want to know from you. Have you any? If you have any idea?
Actually, from many corners of the country, from till the inception of the Ganga project in 1984, several works have been done, and the reports have already been submitted in the government's office. But what they have done, actually, that is the issue of the policy maker. We are not very much aware what they have done. They have sanctioned grant only to assess the pollution monitoring, and they have granted many for installing the water treatment plant, but not all places water treatment plants have been installed. So one of this area is the area heavily industrialized area, heavy metal factory, rifle factory, you know well that all are concentrated here. So immediate installation of this water treatment plant is necessary, and that information that so far we can communicate. That's all.
Okay, okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shankarji, for your answering. Okay, thank you.
So do we have any other questions? Okay, I guess there are no questions. So yeah, so for today's presentation, we do not have two presentations being done. That is by Dr. Mustafa from University of Rajshahi, Bangladesh, and also by Dr. Joshua from the Ngorongoro Conservation Area Authority, Tanzania. So I guess we are only remaining with one presentation now. So this will be the final presentation for today. And it's by Dr. Vinay Kumar Chakrabarti from Department of Fisheries, Agricultural University, Bangladesh.
পলিউশনের গঞ্জায়।
So yes, Dr. Vinay, are you available online? Yes.
So what is happened?
Or like you can open your presentation. This is a normal new PowerPoint presentation slide that is being opened. So you can open your presentation. You can click on Control and O.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, your screen is visible with your presentation.
Is it okay?
Yeah. Maybe could you just try to click on this slideshow so it'll be clear?
Okay, okay. What is the option? Can I start now?
Click
Okay.
on
Yeah,
slideshow.
you could.
Click on slideshow.
Just click on the slideshow. On the top left, you'll have home design animation slideshow.
Slideshow.
On slideshow. In the bottom and in the left. In the right.
I'm not.
On your right. In the bottom and on your right.
What is happening? I do not find the option.
Okay, on the top right, sorry, top left.
It is. Why it is? Why it is? There's something wrong. Okay. Hello.
It's okay. You could start. You could start your presentation.
Okay. 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 Thank you. I am Dr. Vinay Kumar Chakraborty from Bangladesh. This is a Southeast Asian country. First of all, I thanks to Jessica Reba and Sharon Jacob for contacting me about the webinar, and I I send the abstract very rapidly within some hours. So I want to present that is on water pollution in Bangladesh and its impacts. What is it? I want to give an idea of my country, that is geographical scenario of Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a country which is bounded by the west, north, and northeast by India. Southeast is Myanmar, and south is only the Bay of Bengal. The area of the country, 1,47,570 square kilometers. It's a very small country, but the population of the country is 162.18 million, and the growth rate is 1.3 per annum. And and sex ratio is 1.3:1. Important rivers of the country, Padma, Jamuna, Tista, Brahmaputra, Suma, Meghna, and Karnafuli. There are 6 seasons in a year. Winter, summer, and monsoons are the prominent. Winter begins in the November and ends in the February. Our maximum temperature records in summer 41 degrees centigrade. Monsoons start in July and stay up to October. Rainfall varies 1,429 to 4,338 millimeter. Now, introduction. Bangladesh is a highly densely populated country facing severe water pollution and scarcity. About 97% of the total population is across to water, because consisting of more than 230 large and small rivers and small open water sources carries pollutant from municipal waste, domestic and hospital waste, industrial discharge, and runoff from agricultural lands. Agriculture contributes a significant water contamination due to use of metal-based fertilizers. Domestic waste, along with industrial waste, has a significant role in implying a water pollution. Water sources are acted upon by protozoan and bacteria consume the oxygen in water, rendering very low dissolved oxygen. Reduction of dissolved oxygen makes the survival of fishes or other dwellers at the bottom difficult. Causes death of bottom dwellers and disturbing food chain producer water pollution. About 97% of the total pollution depends on groundwater, that is drinking water. As a result, 35 to 77 million people are chronically exposed to arsenic problem. This is a report of Franjalan et al. 2012, and about 8.5% of the total death in Bangladesh is caused by water, sanitation, and hygienic related issue. This is a report of UN Water. Causes of water pollution and source of heavy metal. How it is? Industrial waste. Industrial waste is generated by manufacturing process in factories, who is ultimately release their byproducts into water. They have caused contamination of most of the major sources. And domestic sewage, what is happening? Sewage is organic waste and many chemicals pollutants. It is directly let out in water bodies and polluting them. This causes spread of disease, eutrophication, and rise in the biological demand of oxygen, that is BOD. Pesticides and fertilizer. They form a agriculture waste and have a marked effect on ecosystem. The dose required for clearly of pest reduce reproductive ability and drains the functioning of sex hormones. Here is the scenario of a soil and groundwater contamination. How it is contaminated? Sources of water pollution. Here there is a septic tanks like this, sewage treatment facilities, and others, residual buildings and combustion and abandoned mines, all are mixed in water and groundwater. Here also fertilizer, it is agricultural land, agriculture, surface runoff, and fertilizer, it is also mixed in groundwater and water. And from that is air pollution from raining, the residuals already mixed with groundwater. By this way, soil and groundwater contaminated. Sources of water contamination: anthropogenic activities have led to reduced water quality globally. Contamination of water occurs due to two sources. One is point source. What is point source? Industry discharge, outlet from a factory, oil, sewage outlet spot, spill, sites, etc. Non-point sources. Origin of contamination is not restricted to specific point, that is drain from agricultural land, urban pollution, etc. Additionally, transboundary pollution, where a specific region has associated effect up to for all areas. Now, what is happening in case of industrial influence? Direct contamination of aquatic ecosystem by industries is widespread. Tannery, urea, newsprint, paper and pulp, and jute mills are releasing untreated waste into river. Discharged pollutants are mercury, lead, chromium, arsenic, iron, and etc. Even at relatively low concentration, these pollutants are harmful to aquatic organisms. The high biological oxygen demands, that is BOD, created by serious influence from densely population area that adversely affect fish production. More than 200 rivers of Bangladesh specifically, or in around about get a substantial amount of untreated mechanical waste. Regular roughly 700 tanneries of Dhaka release around 16,000 cubic meters of harmful waste, and 1,176 processing plants that create pollution. That is the report of Department of Environment in Bangladesh. Here is the scenario of Dhaka city. Dhaka city total is around by river, mainly Buriganga river. What is happening? This is the Dhaka city. Water body. This is the, what is the solid waste? That is, here solid waste mixed to river 7,000 tons every day. In here 88 million tons of solid waste from tanneries mixture with river water, and textile industries annually discharge as much as 56 million tons of waste, and 0.5 million tons of sludge is mixed with the river water of Buriganga. 7.7 million liquid waste from tanneries mixed with the river, and 60,000 meter cube toxic waste every day mixed in the river. This is the situation of our capital city of Dhaka. Sewage and wastewater. What is happening in that case? Sewage, junk, and water misuse of family, agriculture, and processing plant discharge into open and river water. These wastes include unsafe chemicals and poisons which makes the water toxic. You will be astonished to hear that around 4,000 to 4,500 tons of industrial waste are increased every day, created every day, and just 50% of produced waste are discarded into river water. It's a very tragic situation. About 500 hospitals in Dhaka city create and discharge risky and harmful waste without treatment. And domestic wastewater from household, schools, and business, that is toilets, showers, clothes washes, dishwashers, etc. Municipal wastewater add in open and river water every day. According to UNDP and uninhabited, untreated 90% of all wastewater generated is released into the environment. In case of oil pollution, what is happening in that case? Contamination of freshwater or marine ecosystem by oil or other petroleum products. Oil spill into rivers, bay, and the ocean are caused by accident involving tankers, barges, pipeline, refineries, drilling rigs, and storage facilities. Spills can be caused by people making mistake or being careless. Oil spills are harmful to marine birds and mammals as well as fish and shellfish also. While destroy the insulting ability of food-bearing mammals such as sea otters and the others, replacing of birds' feeder. What is happening in case of radioactive substances? Radioactive waste is contaminated by radioactivity. It encompasses a wide range of radioactive isotopes in a variety of physical and chemical forms. Radioactive waste is a risk to human health and environment. The waste is oil filled inside huge drums to steel and concrete. Sometimes accident may be happen. Nuclear waste has drastically bad effects on life, causing cancers, growth, genetic problem for many generations of animals and plants. Transboundary. It is a very important issue. Transboundary pollution originates in one country but causes damage in another country's environment by crossing borders through water or air. Pollution is transported across boundaries hundreds and even thousands of kilometers. Contamination results from a disaster like an oil spill or the slow downriver creep of industrial, agricultural, and municipal discharge. Obvious examples include acid rain, global warming, pollution of the North Sea, and damage to the stratospheric ozone layer. Here, now coming important issue on pesticide. What is happening in pesticide? Pesticide was first used in to improve agriculture production in 1951. It is a very burning issue. Use of pesticide is increasing day by day, and consumption of pesticides was double within 6 years. This is the report of Rahman. The paddy fields consume 70% of total pesticides. This is a report of Bhattacharya. About 20 types of insecticides, 18 types of fungicides, and 2 types of rodenticides are used. After applying pesticides, rain run off the residues to the nearest water bodies and become contaminated. And pond water is contaminated by DDE, DDT, DDD, and malathion, dizion, chloropyrifos, pesticides, crop field situated around the pond. Residues of DDT and its metabolites found in fresh fish, dry fish, and poultry feeds and others. Pesticide residues are also detected in meat, milk, and dry fish samples. The use of pesticides will be increased due to meet up dietary demands. Overuse of pesticides can cause genuine or public health insecurity, particularly as residues in food also. Organophorous pesticides are cheap in Bangladesh and its effectiveness is very good. Farmers are encouraged to use it. These are very harmful to farmers' health and cause genotoxics and carcinogenic. It's a very, very tragic for the people of not only Bangladesh, it is India also in Punjab region. Chloropyrifos causes hyperactivity of disorder and development disorder both in fetus and children, and carbamate pesticide, that is carbofuran, cause major problems in the reproductive system of human health, and carbamyl cause nausea, vomiting, and breathing difficulties of human health. This is the scenario of pesticide. Now I want to say about arsenic pollution, what is happening in my country. Arsenic is a fatal element which is named as carcinogenic elements by World Health Organization. About 52 districts of 64 districts contaminate arsenic level more than 0.01 milligram per liter. About 42 districts where the levels were greater than 0.042 milligram per liter. Allowable concentration of arsenic for drinking water is 0.01 milligram per liter, but 0.05 milligram is allowed in Bangladesh. About 8.4% table in Bangladesh contain more than 0.3 milligram per liter arsenic. It's a very danger for human health. In Bangladesh, groundwater from tableland territory contains more arsenic. Floodplain and delta area. Pond water also is not free from high level of arsenic. Arsenic pollution is risk to drinking water in Bangladesh. Over exposure of arsenic increases the disease like lung cancer, renal cancer, skin cancer, create a generation like arsenic orphans. This is the report of Sanathan et al. 2012. Now I want to discuss physicochemical properties of water sources. What is happening in that case? Physicochemical properties are temperature, turbidity, electrical conductivity, dissolved oxygen, biological oxygen demand, that is BOD, chemical oxygen demand, that is COD. BOD is an indication of extent of organic pollution in the aquatic ecosystem. Bangladesh standard of drinking water is more than 0.2 milligram per liter BOD. That is the report of World Health Organization. High value of BOD recorded is heavily polluted surface water. That is example of Buriganga River. COD, chemical oxygen demand, is a practical parameter to determine polluted water. Bangladesh standard for COD is maximum 4 milligram per liter. Dissolved oxygen for drinking water is allowable concentration at 6 milligram per liter. High concentration of dissolved oxygen, that is 12 to 14 milligram per liter, cause gas bubbles disease in fishes. Temperature standards of the water is 20.30 degree centigrade, which influence the aquatic life, solubility of solids, taste and odors, dissolved oxygen. The pH of the water be within 5.5 to 8.5, report of World Health Organization. And total dissolved solids constitutes in organic salts and small amount of organic matter. TDS less than 600 milligram per liter is suitable for drinking water. This is also report of World Health Organization. Potable water is registered conductivity from 50 to 500 microhoules per centimeter, but with mineralized water registering value of only 500. Here, heavy metal, metal and heavy metal. What is metal? Now we know that metal is defined by the physical properties of the element states as element with metallic cluster, the capacity to lose electrons to form positive ions and conduct electricity and heat. Heavy metal, the high density pure elements or and metallic elements. Essential metal is required for complete life cycle of an organism. Trace element, what is trace element? A metal found in low concentration in mass fraction of ppm or less in some specific source, that is soil, plant, tissue, groundwater, etc. Essential heavy metals, what is that? Zinc, iron, copper, manganese, cobalt, and nickel. Non-essential heavy metal, what is it? There is lead, cadmium, and chromium. Now I want to say, discuss about the essential heavy metal. Essential heavy metal, first of all, zinc. Zinc is the second most abundant elements in the humans after iron. After in enzymes and maintain cytoplasmic integrity, it effects on human body. Zinc has a significant role in the central nervous system. Its toxicity include phototoxicity, anemia, lack of muscular coordination, and decreased sense of smell, taste, loss of appetite, delayed own healing, skin sore, or abnormal pain. And leads to damage pancreas, altered protein metabolism, and respiratory disorder. Effects in fish, affects the growth and survival of fish. Accumulation of genes mostly takes place in gills, hampering respiration and resulting the hypoxia and further death. Loss of balance of due to reduced motility of fins and vigorous swimming. In case of iron, what is happening? Iron plays a key role in many biochemical reaction. Iron in the animal body is organic in nature. A very small percentage is found as free inorganic ions, and hemoglobin iron presence approximately 60% of total body iron. There are two kinds of organic iron, that is hemal and non-hemal. Hemal iron forms part of porphyrin groups, represents 70 to 75% of total iron, includes hemoglobin, myoglobin, cytochrome, catalase, and peroxidase. Non-hemal iron includes iron transport storage forms such as transferrin, ferritin, hemosiderin, and other iron proteinates. Iron contents in body differs with respect to species, that is sex, age, stage of health, and nutrition. Chronic high level of iron may cause a level disease named hemosidosis. In case of iron, this is the reaction. In case of nickel, what is happening? Nickel is required for the development of body. Consumption in lower and higher quantities can lead to deficiency and toxicity, respectively. Effects of human, what is happen in case of human? Toxicity leads to phototoxicity, eczema of hands, and contact dermatosis, and in higher doses leads to DNA damage and heart and life damage area. And nickel compounds are potent source of cancer in human body. Effect in fish, this heavy metal is lead to acquired chronic poisoning and eventually death to the fish. In case of cobalt, cobalt has been shown to be an essential component of vitamin B12. Vitamin B12, also known as cobalamin, contains about 4.5% cobalt, and cobalt deficiency leads to wasting disease as a result of inadequate synthesis of vitamin B12 from the dietary cobalt. Low conversion rates could be explained by rapid cobalt uptake by rumen's microorganisms. Effects of human, what is happen? Cobalt toxicity precipitates hypothyroidism, results in pericardial effusion, congestive cardiac failure, hemoglobin emia, fibrosis, pulmonary interstitium and allergic reaction. This is the reaction of copper. In case of copper, what is happening? Copper is an essential mineral for all living organisms. Acceptable concentration of cobalt is 2 milligram per liter. Copper deficiency affects on numerous organisms like liver and other tissues, cardiovascular system and central nervous system. Copper is an essential component for metal enzyme. And what is the effect of humans? Copper deficiency results anemia and manifested dietary iron, and copper toxicity causes kidney and liver damage. In case of fish, metabolic function of copper serve of copper bioavailability, and copper toxicity causes respiratory inhibition by affecting oxygen consumption. In case of manganese, manganese is an abundant trace element in livestock tissue. The mineral forms a link in the chain of calcium metabolism. Insufficient manganese impairs the cartilage development and causes skeleton disorder. Manganese has an important function in blood coating and lipid and carbohydrate metabolism. Manganese also is very important for the protection of cells against damage by the free oxygen radical oxygens, and abnormal male and female reproductive function are also related with a lack of sufficient manganese. Now, what is happening? Non-essential heavy metal. In case of lead, lead is a heavy metal, heavy metal necessary for growth of human body. It enters into the body by respiration and ingestion. Significant quantities accumulates in the bones, muscle, blood, and fats. Effects in human. What is happened in human body? It damage in the form of liver, kidney, brain damage, and nervous impairment. Reduce reproduction and osteoporosis are the other side effect. It causes brain toxicity, mental retardation, learning defects, and growth retardation, and serious health effects in children, phototoxicity and hypertension. In case of fish, what is happened? It happens in fish in the form of hematological and nervous changes. Toxic level of lead in fish can lead to toxicity in humans also. In case of chromium, source is leather tannery industries, textile mills, steel and electroplating setup. Maximum concentration of chromium is drinking water is 0.05 milligram per liter, and every year 50,000 tons of chromium is emitted in the form of combustion and refuse burning. Fertilizer contains significant amounts of chromium. What is the impact of human body? Rising level of chromium in water and fish due to release of industrial influent reflect. Toxic effects in the form of allergic reaction, skin irritation, and ulceration. And chronic exposure leads to internal organs damage, kidney as well as liver damage, alteration in nervous system, reduced immunity, etc. Effect of fish: accumulation of heavy metals takes place through ingestion from surrounding water, and chromium leads to toxicity in the form of anemia, lymphocytosis, and eosinophilia. High concentration of chromium damages the gills of fish. In case of cadmium, cadmium is a non-essential element along with mercury and arsenic and is highly toxic of large water pollution. Mercury quantities of cadmium is liberated due to municipal waste and burning of fossil. Recently, industrial and domestic waste dumping in water bodies elevated cadmium level. Effect, what is effect in human body? Cadmium leads to toxicity in the form of diarrhea, infertility, cancer, cardiac abnormalities, bronchitis, emphysema, and osteoporosis. In case of fish, rate of production of fish species is affected and can eventuate on extinction of their species. Kidney are damaged, tumors, hypertension, hepatic dysfunction are also observed in the lack of function of cadmium. Now I want to discuss mechanism of entry of heavy metal. What is the mechanism? Entry into living organism through abiotic factors, that is soil, sediments, and water. From soil, how it is happened? Heavy metals are a part of fertilizers when it is applied into the agricultural soil and groundwater. Consumption of this water leads to precipitation of heavy metal into human body, and heavy metals gains entry into the soil in the form of automobile induced pollution. In case of sediments acts as the source and reservoirs of heavy metals. Pooling of heavy metals takes in the sediments by releasing into water, and constant setting of heavy metals in sediments tends to percolate it into the groundwater, further contaminating them. Heavy metal in sediments in contributed by many physico-chemical factors like organic matters, temperature, particle size, micro redox reactions, and salinity. What is the causes in case of water form? Groundwater contamination and or consumption of fish as a portal or entry into the human body. Pollutant gains access into the fish body through 5 ways. What is the ways? Intake of contaminated food, suspended particle, water intake through gills occurs, exchange of ions, exchange through skin. It is the report of Abdul Qadir and Rifat Naim Malik. Here is the flow chart. This is the chart of entry of pesticide and heavy metals in living organism. How it is performed? Here we can see pesticide and heavy metal. From this it goes to algae and plankton primary productivity. From there it goes to small marine invertebrates, and then small fish and cephalopods. And from algae plankton to go is also here. It go to seabird, and here also you go to marine. You go to large fish and go to apex predator, that is shark, and go to human. This is the way of flow entering pesticide or heavy metal in the living organism. Factor affecting metals concentration. External factor. What is the external factors? Concentration of metal, physicochemical factors of water column, climatic factor, microenvironment, pH, and temperature. Effects of concentrating heavy metals in fish. In case of temperature, what is happened? Temperature responsible for biological and chemical reactions. High temperature enhance the solubility of specific chemicals. Temperature causes evaporation and decreased flow of water, resulting in piling of organic substances in water, causes to depletion of oxygen content. In case of pH, what is happened? pH has seasonal variation with higher values in winter. Variation attributes to biological factors, atmospheric and temperature changes. pH change causes alteration in metal concentration in water. And in case of internal factors, what is it? Internal factors include fish size, feeding habits, age, and body physiology. Accumulation of heavy metals is different for different tissue. Metabolic activities of the tissue is directly proportional to the accumulation of heavy metals. Gills, liver, and kidney have higher accumulation as compared to skin and muscle. There is the scenario of a pollution. Here is the scenario of pollution of Bangladesh. The pollution of Buriganga river, it is the life of Dhaka city. It is also Buriganga river, scenario of Buriganga river, how is contaminated. And in case of scenario of pollution in Bangladesh, this is the scenario. Here is the graph of that attributed to environmental risk in South Asian contribute 2015 percentage. That the mortality rate. What is it? The Southeast Asia 25.9%, Bangladesh 27.7%, India 26.5%, Nepal 25.8%, Pakistan 22.2%, Afghanistan 20.6%, Bhutan 7.7%, and Sri Lanka 13.7%, and Maldives only 11.5%. This is the scenario. Now, I want to conclude. Conclusion is that heavy metal, pesticide, and surface
I guess there is a network issue by Dr. Binoy, so let's just wait for maybe a few minutes. We'll just see. Dr. Binoy, are you available? Are you online? You're being unmuted. You're being muted. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, now you're audible.
Okay, but the problem was online. That is, I want to conclude the my work. Conclusion: heavy metals, pesticides, surface water, water surface contamination is the most prospective threat for the human being. Among the heavy metals, arsenic found in groundwater at an alarming rate all over the country. High level of iron, chromium, nickel, and lead is also warning. Copper, zinc, and manganese are found below the standard limits in the most of the sources. Measures should be taken to mitigate the effects of toxicity of human health and aquatic environment. Regular assessment and monitoring of concentration of the heavy metals and survey regarding daily consumption of water and fish feed, rules and regulation regarding primary treatment of waste products should be strictly made and surveillance team should be ensured by industries and municipalities. This is the essential duty for a country, for every industries. I think scientific research should be further enhanced to promote assessment of toxic heavy metals, awareness by educating peoples of harmful effects of metal toxicity. This is the measure of to mitigate the effects of toxicants. And this is my presentation. Thank you to all to hear my lecture patiently, and thank you also all delegates and dignitaries and the organizer of the committee for give me a chance to deliver this kind of lecture in this webinar. Again, thank you to all.
Thank you for your presentation and your information. So yeah, do we have any questions or comments?
Sir, Professor Chakraborty.
Yeah.
I am Shankar Narayan Sinha from Kolani University. Sir,
okay.
do you recognize me?
Yeah.
Sir, what you have presented, this is a total scenario of a country, very lucidly presented you. But the situation of the condition arsenic is very alarming to me. Now, my question is, what you have shown regarding the arsenic concentration, in which form arsenic has been determined? Are the all valence form of arsenic toxic? I just want to know which form of arsenic is found to be toxic and why.
No, just I want to say I discuss not elaborately, shortly. I discuss it according to the geographic area of Bangladesh. You know that some area of the country is very risky. That is your Dinajpur, our Dinajpur area, and it may be Murshidabad, like the Chapainabganj, some area, and also some area of Sylhet area, and like this some areas are very risky, and for arsenic recovery there are so many projects, and they are trying.
No, my question is not that. My question is what you have shown, that is the situation of arsenic condition is very alarming situation. My question is, not all the valence form of the arsenic is found to be toxic. So what they have determined, or you have determined, which form of arsenic is found to be toxic in which valence form, and why it is so much toxic?
Actually, I collect the data. Please. Please.
Yeah.
This is the situation of arsenic. because I told you that in my country, out of 64 districts, 52 districts are the position is 0.101 milligram per liter. The rate of arsenic, and you know that.
No, sir, I am not talking about this. This is what you have said, that is very much true. My question is what very much symptoms that is arising, not due to whether there is some arsenic or not, but arsenic must be present in some toxic form. I just want to know which form is found to be toxic in that area.
Okay, it is not.
And is there any measure that toxic form is one valence form is to be transformed to another valence form? Then
Because,
toxicity will be minimized. Detoxification of arsenic. That's
okay,
my question.
it is not. I'm sorry, this is not answered by me because I have no heavy work on arsenic. I just it is a collect from review paper, so I discuss it by this way.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
So do we have any other questions?
Yes, I actually have one question.
Yes, please go ahead, Dr. Yanina.
Yeah, it's about your wastewater treatment plants. Have you done, I mean, in Bangladesh, have there been optimizations studies of the wastewater treatment plants? Because I noticed that a lot of the effluent is heavily polluted. So, and you have a lot of rainfall, so it could be something to do with the runoff on the urbanized areas. So I was just wondering, how is the wastewater treatment management in Bangladesh?
Actually, this is the scenario of toxicity of different sources. Every industrial when it is constructed, every industry has a waste treatment plant, but anyhow they are not continuing it because of losing money. So Environmental Department of Bangladesh now trying to apply all the rules and regulation. In that case, in case of every industries, every every tannery industries, any kind of industries. So we are advancing to minimize the minimize with the nature, to minimize with the water for drinking water like this.
Oh, it's more wastewater, I meant, yeah, sewage water. Not drink water, but wastewater. So that goes onto the surface water.
Yeah, surface water.
Yeah, wastewater. Thank you.
So yeah, do we have any other questions or comments?
Romario,
Okay, I guess there are no questions.
Dr. Romario, when I visited about 2000 in France, UK, like your developed country, it is Netherlands like this. Then I visited so many industries. Every industry has influenced just in your country, in European country, waste management influence minimizing factory in that area. In third world countries like it may be Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, Nepal, or other Vietnam or East Asian other countries, we are establishing industries with properly we have to use influence of the industrial waste product. This is the scenario.
Yes, yes, I understand because of water scarcity.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, here also in the Netherlands, it's not perfect. We spend a lot of money running these wastewater treatment plants, and it goes from our taxes, and it's extremely expensive, and it's still not to code of keeping the waters clean at all. So it's a world problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, any other questions? Okay, I guess there are no questions. So yeah, I guess we have come to the end of our today webinar. And thanks a lot for each and every one of you who have attended the webinar and made this a success with all your presentations and your topics. And thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. And yeah, we look forward for your presence in our future webinars or conferences. And once all this situation of COVID pandemic ends, and we really hope to meet you all personally at a conference, which we might arrange maybe sooner or later. And stay home, stay safe, and yeah, thanks a lot for your presence. And
Jessica, I was wondering if there's any sort of document we will be receiving.
oh yeah, we will receive an email with I hope you've already received the book, and so with the certificate will be sent to you through your email right away, maybe within the next 20 minutes you'll receive the email.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you one and all. It was really great
Thank
to
you
know
so
you
much
all
for
and your
having
research works.
wonderful workshop and give me us presentation in nice go-to-meeting apps to the new dimension.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Also.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Stay safe, everyone.